Good morning all. And hello, my name is Tapani.
Good morning from my behalf too. My name is Evelina. I'm your host during this morning.
And we want to wish you warmly welcome. Today we have the 6th annual BitFest, of which we are really proud of. And at the same time, this also marks a really special day for us because it's also 35 years of business IT teaching in Hämeenlinna. So this is a really, really special day for us in here. And we have a really great program lined up for you. Hopefully you enjoy. And I'll let Evelina tell more about that.
Yes. Nice to see so big audience here in Visamäki auditoriums. I think we have students from at least 5 or 6 degree programs represented here. Then we are having a live stream option. Our online students are participating in the seminar through our live stream page. And what's new for us this year is that we have invited our international partner universities to participate this BitFest seminar. They are watching globally this seminar through our live stream, so welcome to the live stream audiences as well. Every year we try to do something a little bit different or better or bigger. Last year we changed the language of the seminar to English. It worked pretty well, so we decided to stay on that language this year as well. We have been scaling up the seminar this year. We have opened the live stream option for bigger audiences this year. And again, like every year in BitFest, we have really interesting, excellent speakers. I will introduce them a little bit later, but quickly, the schedule of the seminar. I'm not going to go through it right now. You have all seen the speakers and the topics beforehand. We will have a small break in the middle of the seminar. There's coffee served in the lobby, so feel free to enjoy that option. If you are using social media to post or share something, please use #BitFest and #HAMK, so we can follow the stream there as well. I think we are ready to continue with our first speaker. And actually, before that, I need to mention that if you have any questions before or after every speech, there's going to be a couple of minutes time to ask the questions from the speakers, and feel free to use the break to catch up with the speakers if you have anything special on your mind. But if you have any questions that you would like to ask here publicly, prepare yourself and raise your hand after the presentation. But so at last, I would like to introduce our first speaker, Mika Kuusisto, CEO of ENCE Esports. Let's give a big hand for Mika.
Am I on? Good morning, everybody. You want to talk about esports? And this is not going to be watching games, but rather talking about business, right? How many of you have not heard of ENCE? Are you serious? We need to talk. Actually, I was yesterday speaking whole day at the at like a small conference or seminar for some of the largest brands in Finland and some of the marketing directors, chief marketing officers, etc. And in that session, I asked the question other way around, like who have heard, and they were like 3 hands out of 30. So depends, right? before actually diving in, so a little bit like of myself, I'm actually pretty rare animal in the esports scene as a CEO, because I don't have a competitive, gaming background. I haven't been in esports for like 20 years or 10 years. I've actually built games companies, technology companies, and particularly services companies for games, so ad networks, etc., etc. Last, say, 15 years or so, I've always done international business. But the big difference when I jumped into ENCE about a year and a half ago was that this is the first time in my career when my company's value doesn't based on a line of code. It was always a product, technology product that I was taking to the market. Now we have a brand. Now we have a pretty cool brand. So let's dive in.
You would know they are massive favourites, but that's what's been against the next team all the way through this tournament. They are underdogs, but they are here to win. Please welcome to the stage. It's ENCE!
Easy for ENCE, put Miners Majori haastaa legendaarisia. Nyt isos liigas niinku Roosberg, suomalais rättii. Maailmanluokan kaliberis, 2 lasi maitoa ja 1 lasi piimää. En se kylvää ja en se siittää. Natu paljusta kansi avataan. Pojat on tulos, torilla tavataan. Easy for ENCE, dance. Put that belt. Easy for ENCE, dance. Put that.
So, talking about business, so why is this relevant? This piece was actually, most of you know, Counter-Strike majors, i.e. the World Championships in February, March last year, when we were the underdog and we went all the way to the final. Unfortunately, this is not after the final, this is a tournament later. But on the final, we actually lost. But why this piece of content is relevant when speaking about business is that this is exactly what we do. My team at the office is more about creating content and doing digital marketing and outside the kind of esports project meaning the players and the coaching stuff, etc., etc. So my brand is based on content you saw. This piece of content is fully produced by my team, which means that we're more like a media house actually than a, let's say, traditional sports organization. And by the way, I don't want to compare traditional sports and esports. In Finnish, we talk about kilpapelaaminen rather than esports. We talk about competitive gaming. And by the way, yesterday I learned that originally the word sports is coming from I think Latin, and it means kind of consuming time. So it's not about sports, but I don't want to compare these two things. But before kind of diving into the business with this kind of content, I want to kind of, those of you who don't know much about ENCE, a little bit of like what we do. Well, sorry, there's one slide before. So you heard this song on the background, right? This was a song that by today has about 14 million streams on YouTube and Spotify. The song went to top 5 on viral Spotify in Finland, Sweden, Denmark, Norway, Poland, and Czech, which is pretty surprising because it's a Finnish rap song. It's a fan song that was produced originally for ENCE by our fans. And this is a second note about the business of esports, about phenomena where we support heavily our fans producing content. This piece of song, 14 million streams, is almost zero cost for me. We supported fans generating this. Eventually we gave a bunch of Warner Music guys a bunch of hoodies, t-shirts, stuff like that. And obviously that also is relevant for some of our partners like Red Bull. Red Bull is very visible on the music video itself. Cost for that production for me was a few €100, to be honest. So that's just how you virality also in this business makes kind of perfect sense. This is a gold label. However, that's an old pic. I didn't have a picture of the platinum label, so it's pretty cool. This is, by the way, the first song ever implemented to Counter-Strike as a music kit for a kind of a team. So a couple of slides about like who we are then, right? Like this is our Counter-Strike team. This is our bread and butter. Most of the stuff revolves around this team. My business revolves around this team traveling the world. These guys travel about 160, 170 days a year. We shoot a lot of content with them. We have a content team with them, producing videos, producing content, producing stuff, which eventually is the visibility we have to create for our partners. I'm going to come back later to the revenue streams and the business, how the models work. But keep this in mind that we need to keep showing these logos of sponsors, right? This team is last year we were at best times after that Katowice Majors final, number 2 in the world ranking, and after that we soon won one large tournament as well. Latter part of the year we did some changes. We had some tough times. I think now we are number 12 in the world. What is relevant in Counter-Strike is that you need to be in top 30 in the world to be able to kind of get good invitations to great events, etc. We've been top 30 team in the world about 85 or 86 weeks in a row. This is one of the weird data points that people do follow in the scene. Joona, Serol, those of you who have followed StarCraft 2, this is the first ever non-Korean player to win the World Championship in 2018. He's super big star in Korea. The game is a lot more niche than Counter-Strike. So if I look into my kind of follower base or fan base of the team, he has lost a lot less than Counter-Strike team. But on the other hand, his followers are super loyal. They go to the store and buy these when we launch something new, and they kind of go to tournaments, etc., etc. He's considered. Second year in a row, he's being considered as best player in the world, although he couldn't renew the World Championship title late last year. About a year ago, we expanded to a third game. We wanted to kind of start building new audiences and new experiences. And what was really interesting here, as I mentioned earlier, I've always done international business. This is the first team we didn't have in Helsinki in Finland, right? We had these guys in Berlin. PUBG launched regional leagues, European League, North American League, etc. So we took a risk and we assembled a team for the European League, and these guys won the first season of that league. So we have a game house in Berlin where these guys live in Germany. All the games from the league were played in Berlin, in a studio environment, etc., etc. This was kind of for us to set up our foot in another kind of market as well. Currently, PUBG scene is going a little bit through changes, so the league structure is being kind of changed back to the kind of open tournament market. So our guys are now practicing for the next big tournament, which happens to be played in Berlin. So that was the bit of a background of like what are we doing, right? Like in terms of like, yeah, you have professional players who, by the way, get paid for what they do. They're all professionals. They need to train hard, etc., etc. And then my office, my kind of office organization is all about content generation, content marketing, digital marketing. Now, I'm going to come back to a little bit of these numbers later. But now where we're looking into, we have about 30,000 fans, I guess. That's the latest figure I recall. This keeps growing every day. And what this means in practice is that we have more than 800,000 followers on different channels such as Twitter, Instagram, also YouTube, well, some on Facebook. What is important to note that Facebook is not an important channel for esports organizations. Vast majority of the audience is not very much involved with Facebook, but on Twitter on Instagram, platforms like or sites like Reddit, for example, and more data later on about the fans as such, but I want to pick one number here. 51% of our fan base consume esports every week. How many of you consume or follow esports every week? Yeah, quite a few. That's good. 51% is an important metric because when we look into the global scene, audience is usually being divided by esports enthusiasts, which is exactly the people who follow it at least once a week, and then the casual followers who kind of more rarely follow it. And more about those numbers as well later. When we did this kind of survey with all the university last summer about fan base, 73.6% consider them being super fans. And this is another metric that we're very proud of, because our followers really kind of they really engage with our brand and our players, etc. And that is backbone of building everything with regards to the business. And maybe I like to show this slide, like how did we get here, like why, like how did we just suddenly get there, like being number 2 in the world, etc. And I've been here only a year and a half, but I'm going to show you this slide. This is what I've done many times in different technology companies. So I wasn't around when guys founded ENCE 2013. They created the first lineup for Counter-Strike. They had a vision, and we want to build the first team from Finland who's going to be the number 1 in the world on Counter-Strike. This was the vision they set 2013. Now, by 2016, they all rebooted. They couldn't figure it out. They tried other games as well, but nothing seemed to work, right? Whether they didn't have the skill set, whether they didn't have the players, whatever, but they had to reboot. I've done this for technology companies, by the way. You set up a vision, you want to do something, and then 2 years later you realize, okay, maybe this was not the right move. Moving on, 4th lineup of Counter-Strike was the lineup that got us to number 2 in the world. 4th time. So changes, pivoting even, if you will, compared to the technology scene. The guys were very stubborn, to be honest. They never gave up. They were like, okay, we can figure it out. We still want to do the vision, right? And this fourth lineup, we kind of went in less than 3 months actually, from being something like top 200 in the world to that top 30. And then the initial vision in 2013 and the ideas these guys had started to kind of come together. And where we are today, now it's just executing that vision, right? And we kind of, one of the slogan we sometimes use that from a meme to a dream, and this was a joke many years in the scene, because these guys, my original founders, they were not like shy about telling the fact that we want to be number 1 in the world, right? People were laughing, you lost another game, why are you so bold? But these guys kept on going. And why I wanted to talk about this slide or show this, because this is entrepreneurship right there. And I'm not saying that every time it works. I've done this many times, and many times I've failed. Sometimes it works. The point is that stubbornness sometimes is good. Never give up. And then because of you always need to pick up a smarter brain than you have. So vision without execution is just hallucination by a guy called Thomas Edison. So this is exactly what it is. I've always been the guy to execute stuff. I'm not the best product innovator. I'm not the technology guy, but I'm the commercial guy, the go-to-market guy. It's all about running nowadays, just getting stuff done. When you do stuff, things break as well. Important stuff is to kind of, don't do the same mistake twice. Keep on doing. It's all about long term. But that's a little bit of kind of setting the mood, and then I'm going to talk about a little bit about what is the audience and how the revenue kind of streams work in this business. Now, some of you might have seen this graph as well. This is from a research company called Newzoo. They do a lot of research for games business, for or gaming market, but also esports nowadays. Basically, what they're saying is that by end of last year, there were already almost 500 million people who are actively following esports in the world. And do note that the darker color there on the lower side is the enthusiasts. Those are the people, like raised hands, that I follow esports at least once a week. What is being forecasted is that by end of next year, 2022, we would have more than 645 million of active followers of esports. My take on this is that this number is going to be bigger because Newzoo keeps updating these figures almost quarterly basis. So they're gonna keep growing faster than we expect. And then what is important to note is that, and apologies, this is old picture, so the numbers are a little bit different today, or the old graph. This is based on 2017, where first of all, I need to go closer. When we look into kind of male-female demographics, roughly about third nowadays. In that graph, I think it's about 26%. 27 are females following esports. Nowadays it's about a little bit more than 32, and it's been growing. But it's still, I'd say 1/3 of the audience roughly is female. And this is very important when I'm talking to my partners, like, I don't know, Red Bull, Samsung, Logitech, people like that when they want to do activations with their products together with us, how do you want to kind of, who are the people you want to target for? What is another important metric on the graph on the right side is that there's still very kind of, in general, there's an understanding that esports followers are, and the gamers are, super young kids, playing in the basement, right? That's not a fact. If you look into the biggest chunk of the audience, for ENCE, it's about 18 to 29-year-old male. And if you look into the males in terms of, say, above 18, that's actually a pretty large chunk. And beyond that number, even if you look in the US, esports follower actually has higher household income than traditional sports fan nowadays. So there's a lot more power, later on to kind of, monetize. If we break that down, like how's the revenue kind of, where is that kind of money coming? The one on the left is the sponsorships. That's almost half of 1.1 billion last year. And this kind of tells you that, why I'm keep talking about partners, why I'm keep talking about Red Bull or Samsung or these guys. These eventually sponsors kind of make this happen. And this is very similar to traditional sports. However, what esports doesn't have is as an organization, I don't have home games. We don't have a stadium. We don't sell tickets, every Thursday for a home game. That's one of the kind of challenges I need to tackle. Media rights is important factor. Media rights, unfortunately, is not that widely integrated, let's say, in Europe yet. North America, media rights are a very important part of the business. Then there's advertising, merchandise, game publisher fees. I'm going to come back to this slide a little bit more deep down on how, what does this look like from ENCE perspective. But just one more graph about the revenue growth. I mean, this is pretty remarkable as well. So it's just, looking into, where we're going. The only kind of problem I'm having is that the game publisher fees, game publishers, game companies supporting esports ecosystem, they are not subsidizing it that much anymore. Eventually, obviously everybody hoped they don't need to, but they used to spend a little bit more money in terms of, building the ecosystem. At the end of the day, for game publishers, esports is one way to sell their games, let's be honest. They're not investing that much anymore. There are variations for that, but that's another discussion. Now let's take a global look, and how is the revenue kind of been driven globally? And you look at North America is is leading again. But what's important here to understand is if I'm looking into the media rights is actually reasonably big percentage in US. It's almost a half of a global, like globally, if you look into how much media rights are generating, 40%, US is almost half of that. So again, American model where you have franchise leagues, media rights are much more important than for example in Europe. Let's dive into who's ENCE fan. And I have no idea where I'm on time, by the way, but we'll figure it out. I guess I have time. So as I mentioned, we kind of, we looked into our fan base last summer. Like, who's our fan, what do they do, et cetera. And based on this survey we did with Aalto University, we got a little bit more than 6,000 responses. I think 5,800 of those were like super reliable. So reliability in this data means that we drop down, answers that there would be 15-year-old kid earning 2 million euros a year. Maybe he was an esports player though. But this is what our data looks, and that's now let's pick up the 51%, right? Now that's important, like super good. Now 38% of our fans consume esports every single day of the year, 365 days a year. This is another data point that I'm super proud of when I go to talk to those partners. That, there's an audience who's extremely highly engaged with the stuff we do. And I don't have this data for other organizations like globally, but I bet that we are very good, but I bet there are so many other good teams that have very, very high engagement rate. So fans are really engaged and followers are engaged. The audience is super, super keen to follow everything you do. Now, to support this fact, I also took a look on where do we sell stuff, because this, selling jerseys and hoodies and stuff is also an important part of the business. We've delivered to more than 100 countries in last year, and this is remarkable. We actually launched our shop.ence.gg only about 14 months ago, I think in November 2018. So last year, 100 countries, we were shipping stuff to. 80% of that business is to Finland, but yet it's an important kind of understanding that there's a global global piece of it. And when we generate content, behind the scenes content on YouTube, short of stuff, etc., it's regularly being consumed in more than 35 countries in the world. I'd say Scandinavia is important, or Nordics, parts of Eastern Europe as well, but US starts to be pretty important as well. My problem as a marketer is that my fan base is 40% outside Finland, but that 40% is very, very fragmented, right? So when it's like 4% in Poland and 3% in Sweden and 6% in US, so it's kind of still challenging to figure out like market specific stuff, how to build the brand to be kind of stronger and larger. 80% of our fans are between 18 to 35, and 90% are male, or more than 90%. So this sets up some sort of like I'd say even limits at times, to our business. What I also want to always show is that what are the media these guys use, and for us, when in general in esports, Twitch, different esports media sites, HLTV, which is all about tournaments and data, all that stuff, those are very important. But over the last year, what we did a lot, we really started to invest on Instagram and YouTube. YouTube particularly grew from less than 1,000 subscribers to I think 67,000 or 57,000, roughly 60,000 subscribers at the end of the year. And nowadays, there's millions of minutes watched. Usually when we do a behind the scenes episode, it's got about 100,000 plus views in less than 48 hours or 72 hours. Super, super engaging content. Content is actually just, what is the real life of an esports player out there? When they travel the world, they need to practice and all that stuff. So that is again our own production, and this is one way of us looking into the business. The differences of these different channels is Twitch is really about people go to Twitch to follow the tournaments. They follow, obviously, streamers, etc. But that's like they consume the actual gameplay. Twitter is where we have a lot of dialogue with fans. So when we post something, our followers reply. We need to have that conversation and that dialogue. But sometimes it's also kind of, initiated by fans. Actually, pretty often, having fan-generated content that they tweet about it, and then we kind of acknowledge that this is important. Instagram is then about the stories and visual moments of us, again, the team traveling the world. Very different. Why Twitter, Instagram difference there is important to notice that, again, when looking from the business perspective, how do you promote your partners is completely different strategy-wise, on Twitter and Instagram. And then YouTube is really about live the life of a pro, like following the team, seeing what they do, how they practice, what they do after the game, between the maps, all that stuff, and just getting our followers closer to each player. There's no business without talking about money, right? So let's talk about a little bit about where's the euro for ENCE. I showed this slide, like how are the revenue streams coming together in this business. If I'm looking into how ENCE operates the business, majority of our revenue is coming from, actually not majority, I'll show you that later, but it's sponsorship are super important. Super important. Media rights, we don't have access to that. There's no access to media rights. I don't get a piece of revenue if, say, Telia is buying the rights for next big tournament and showing them on their channel. That's not a revenue stream for me. It doesn't really, I don't care. Advertising, to some level, what is the difference between sponsorship and advertising? But advertising in this context would be more than, we would sell advertisement, ad space on our YouTube channel, for example. We don't really do that there, but we have other means of sometimes experiment on advertising those. But I also put the cross there because it's not really something that scales, at least not yet for us. Merchandise and tickets. Merchandise, yes, that's pretty good for us. Ticket, somebody organizing a big tournament and our guys win it, we don't get any access to that ticket fee. That's not relevant for us, right? And then game publisher fees. Yeah, well, there's been some in the past, Counter-Strike, there's no such thing. Rainbow Six we had, Ubisoft was, supporting us a little bit. PUBG is helping us a little bit to kind of maintain the competitive team. But that's not big enough to kind of take the risk of setting up a team. Now this is already wildly different than a global view of esports, and particularly because of the media rights. That's about more than 20% of the whole cake, and we have clearly no access to that. Now, this is ENCE 2019. Sponsorships were about 40%. This is the high margin. Sponsorship is what makes me to pay the salaries for my team and the office space and all that stuff. The difference between sponsorships and prize money here, prize money means when the guys win a tournament or they receive prize money, whether they are fifth or sixth, right? And then digital items, game publishers have models where, our players can sell ENCE stickers on the game, for example, and different digital items. This is about 35% of our revenue. And this is the low margin business because vast majority of this money flows through us back to the players. So in the industry standard in esports is that organization or players get 80 to 100% of that prize money directly to their pocket. We are somewhere there as well. So this is important piece of the top line revenue, but it doesn't really help me to pay the salaries or pay the office space. But if I compare to large global organization in esports, usually these numbers are completely different. So usually the prize money is a lot larger because numbers in Finland are going to be public. So our last year was almost about 3 million euro revenue, about $3 million actually, so 2.75 I guess in euros, and so anybody can calculate if you wish. Merchandise is 15% of our business. Our e-com site shop.ence.gg is main driver, but we also have done deals with our partners. Say, for example, Telia as a telecom operator, they have campaigns when buy a new subscription and you get an ENCE hoodie, on top, right? Or stuff like that. We did Christmas campaigns and stuff like that. We simply bundle stuff, and this really attracts gamers to Telia as a customer as well. Now, other businesses we've done some services. We've helped other organizations with different things, etc., etc. Other is other, and it's not scalable. I don't want to see other in 2 years as 10% because I want to build something that scales. But this just to kind of break down on where we are. Now, been talking about sponsorships and brands and how important partners are. And then, most of us have an idea of what is sponsorship in traditional sports, right? You have a logo in a jersey, or you have a logo on a hockey rink, right? Or football stadium. Now, esports is mainly on digital media. Our followers are digital natives, but it's also important that we kind of bridge the gap between the two worlds. So we need to have the logos visible on the team jersey. We get tons of earned media in tournaments. If we win the World Championship, there's going to be million and a half concurrent watchers all over the place, watching the stream. So this is important part on the left. This is a tournament from Shanghai a few months back. But what's really the magic is the digital platform. So we need to kind of integrate the both in a nice manner. And this is just how important the kind of the old world is as well. Now I want to bring a couple of cases, like how do we really, like what does it mean to generate that 40% of sponsorship revenue? It's not about the logo on a jersey, that's part of it, it's part of the marketing mix, but this is actually much more important. This is an example of how we have worked with two different sponsors at the same time. So first of all, Samsung, or it could be Logitech or Asus. In this case, Samsung, have campaigns together with Telia to push their new phones to the market using ENCE likeness. And so this is what we call like a three-party collaboration, where Telia would be the distribution channel, and Samsung would build the products, and then ENCE is there. They're actually leveraging our brand, and what's also remarkable here is that you see these kind of stickers, which are a little bit smaller there. These are the stickers based on professional gamers' recommendations of what is a good product. This works super well for, say, Logitech, keyboards and mice and stuff like that. Also for phones. So if our star player says that this is the best keyboard if you want to be the professional gamer, this gold sticker there, people are very, it's very authentic, or this is maybe for a hobbyer. So that's what we do a lot. So working with sponsors actually means I need to throw in quite a lot of resources to plan these things, be creative, etc., etc. Again, having a logo here is important, but it's just one little piece of it. And I'm going to show, let's go back. I'm going to show a little bit of video, because what we do about content for sponsors, it's a lot more about influencer marketing type of stuff. I'm going to just show you a quick few seconds in the beginning.
Joo, ei täältä mitään näe. Ei muuta kuin herrat on hyvä ja bon appetit. Käykää kiinni. Kertokaa vähän millaisia makutottumuksia sieltä tulee näiden sämpylöiden välistä. Voidaanko mä tätä mun suuhun asti? Joo, mä oon ainakin pian siinä.
Everybody non-Finnish out there, this was a video, and it's longer. There's a video series for a company called Wolt, which is a food delivery app. They raised whatever 120 million. They are conquering the world. So we did a content for them to use our likeness of the players with different things. So a player would be a food delivery guy, delivering pizzas to homes. Also the team jerseys, jerseys like that, and then we had this blind tasting, where guys would actually taste a non-meat versus a burger versus a meat one, and they like all that stuff, and it's just the influencer marketing type of stuff that we need to create, and we are the media house behind of this. This is another one I just took a screenshot, which is completely different style. This is more about Asus kind of promotion, but the message is all about how our head coach of Counter-Strike what is his philosophy of coaching. So on that piece of video, you see Asus as a laptop, as a computer that he's using for his work, but he's not selling Asus. So this is part of the kind of marketing mix as well, that, yes, we do, activations with Asus as well in, say, point of sales, but to support the brand, this is part of it as well. And kind of, wanted to show a couple of examples, but this is the kind of second to last slide. I mentioned earlier that in US, an esports fan actually have a higher household income, and there are a few other important metrics that I want to talk about. There's one of the founder of KSV Esports, I think Gen G nowadays, that shared this couple of years back in a conference. So esports fan in US today is 25 to 30-year-old male. High household income. It's not really monetized, but they're digital native. They live their life on digital channels. And they're part of the global audience. They're part of global games. So they watch games that are being played in Asia or in Finland or wherever. And they interact with fans globally. Now, let's look into what is the traditional sports fan in US. Plus 50 years old, 53, 54, I guess. Median household income, I'd say fully monetized. They are analog. They go to local games. They have the home game every Tuesday and Thursday. They go to baseball game. So it's local. They interact with local fans. There's nothing wrong with that. That's great. But the question is, why does a traditional esports fan today traditional sports fan spends 10 times more money being a fan rather than an esports fan? This is a good question. So to me, it spells there's a lot of room for innovation, but it also spells a promise, right? So if you look into the global audience, how it's growing, how engaged fans are, we only going to unlock. I mean, if we double that, if we kind of close the gap to not being only like 5x, esports going to be massive in by that time, and I believe it's going to be a lot more. So today, even some analysts in US expect esports fan to behave similarly in terms of their consuming behavior than the traditional sports fan. So go to the stadium, buy the jersey, buy the beer, all that stuff. That is part of it. If I look into our fan base, yes, they go to maybe 1 or 2 tournaments a year, max, outside Finland. But what they really do is they spend 365 days a year for consuming esports online. So this screams for more kind of digital products and stuff like that. Now, to kind of recap, and this is the last slide. So I think what I want to say is that esports is here to stay. So audience growth is non-questionable. I get sometimes a question about like, is the bubble going to burst in esports someday? Because it's hype. My answer is, I don't really care if company valuations in the US are going to burst in esports, because the fact is that the audience keeps growing. So if I can build something sustainable as a company, we're going to be there tomorrow as well, and the audience keeps growing. If my sponsorship revenue will drop this year 30%, I will survive, and then next year I'm going to push back, right? So this is all about this is just non-questionable that the eyeballs are moving to esports. One data point I didn't have in the slides that Sponsor Insight did a study in Finland last year that 18 to 26-year-old males follow more esports now than ice hockey. This last year was the first time esports is more followed than any other sports in Finland. This is another signal. What is important to note is that this group of 18 to 30-year-old males are super, super, super hard to reach. As a brand, you can kind of tweet. If I'm this, I can tweet on Twitter. But it doesn't really, it doesn't work with these guys. If I put this in the hands of an esports player, it gets recognized. Again, audience is digital native. It's all about digital channels, but yet you need to be able to obviously bridge the gap to physical world. That's why the team jerseys, that's why tournaments, etc., etc. Last but not least, bullet point, you need to be authentic. This is what I keep talking to everybody who wants to do business in esports. If you want to talk to this audience, be authentic. If you want to glue something on top and do fake marketing, you will burn your fingers. It's not going to work. And that's the last one. 10 times immediate growth opportunity. This is bridging the gap between the traditional sports fans, how they spend money on supporting their teams and being fans. Esports fans are not yet on that level, although all the metrics, all the data points support the fact that they will spend even more money eventually and generate more business. This is the message I also want to give all the brands, all the partners, but also to you guys. If any one of you thinks about esports, I think there's a bright future in terms of business. It's going to be hard because it's still early. It's going to be tough, but think about it. I'm kind of done. That's it. I'm going to hang around until the coffee break. So if anyone wants to talk, happy to chat, and then I need to leave to catch my flight. But it's a pleasure. I'm not sure if you have any time for questions or if anybody.
Yes, we have time for a couple of questions. If anyone is brave enough to raise hand and ask something loudly here. I do have many questions, but
shoot.
Thank you, Mika. Really interesting presentation.
Thank you.
Important numbers. But if you mentioned that you are not from the game industry and you are not a gamer, originally at least. If someone is interested in the esports industry and is not a gamer, are there any possibilities to have a career in esports industry?
The 100%. So I think, I have a long background on mobile games businesses and like I see a lot of similarities. 15 years in mobile games companies, you had hard time recruiting people outside that industry. And now esports is a little bit, because we get tons of people applying who are ex-players that play. And sorry, I was not clear. I've always been playing games, but not competitively, right? So I do play. Don't ask my wife. I play too much. But the point being, I think what is the precondition is that you need to be interested in games, and that's usually the reason that if you haven't been played because you're not interested in. That's going to be tough not to crack. You need to be interested in games, and then let's talk.
Thank you. Another question. You showed us some numbers of US and Europe, but from your experience, how does the esports industry differ in the Europe compared to the States, or does it differ at all? It does.
So in States, typically a lot more money. In States also the model that works in sports is for franchise leagues. So in NHL, you have enough money in Seattle, you buy a slot when they expand, etc., etc. This is in esports on Overwatch, etc. So you build a league, franchise leagues, raise tons of money and stuff like that. And this also US. There's a lot of large sports organizations who own hockey stadiums, hockey teams, baseball teams, NBA teams, and now recent years they've been expanding to esports as well. We have a little bit of that in Europe. Some organizations are investing, but not on that level. So we are kind of running a little bit behind. If you come to Finland, this is very early. So ENCE, I think we have professionally organizations in Finland. They're like handful, and then there's a long tail of people who are really passionate of doing stuff, and everybody hopes they're going to be the next ENCE. But I think if I look at the fan base in Finland, I think we have about 30 times more followers than the next organization. But we tend to work together. We want to work together because it's growing. There's enough for everybody when things grow, right? So it's important for us to grow the ecosystem, and then everybody will enjoy.
Okay, thank you again, Mika.
I
think we can move on to the next speaker.
Thank you.
And next on stage we will have Tahvanainen from Telia Finland. She will be speaking about artificial intelligence and how to combine this kind of technological solutions into business life. So let's give a big hand for her too.
Good morning. My name is Tahvanainen and I'm from Telia Finland, working with robotics and AI, and I'm part of our business-to-business unit, Digital Business Solutions. And I started at Telia Finland first as a part of our internal development projects, and was a part of the team in which we were rolling out our robotic process automation functions, and then I was acting as an AI lead internally in Telia. And recently, 1 year ago, I started to work with our business customers, and now I'm figuring out the ways how we can use these technologies to help our business customers. And during my presentation, I'm going to speak about what is intelligent automation. And then I'm gonna go through this case Telia, one really relevant use case we did actually in our Telia company, in our legal operations. And then I'm going to go through some future prospects with these technologies. I have a couple of videos and demos I'm going to show you. And what about you? I think everybody has heard these buzzwords, intelligent automation, RPA, AI. Is there anyone that haven't heard this? Not single one. All right, so that's great way to start. And how many of you have been able to work with these technologies already? Yeah, so there's experience already. And I think every one of us are using these technologies daily when we are using Instagram, Facebook, any social media platforms, for example. But I'm going to go through what we mean when we talk about RPA and AI in Telia. We are concentrating also in data quality because it's the most valuable aspects when it comes to using these technologies. And then when it comes to robotic process automation, we are talking just simple ways to automate processes or just do these manual tasks with machines, which has repetitive actions and really clear process. It's just not any rocket science, and it's business as usual nowadays in most of the companies. And when it comes to RDA, we are talking about robotic desktop automation, and it's something new which companies are nowadays taking for these processes, and they are using these virtual assistants to help their employees. And then when we are talking about AI, it's a more complex, even we can talk about really many aspects, and I'm going to dive into that a more deeper level. So basically, when it comes to technology, if you can document some process, it's able to be automated as well. And machines are really good to handle these repetitive processes and quick processes. And this really challenges the roles of the humans and the machines, because we are used to solving problems, but now when it's time that computers are able to actually solve tasks that are regarded as creativity, needed creativity, we need to rethink the roles again. Nowadays, I see that we as a human beings, we need to focus on finding the right problems. Machines are good with solving problems when it comes like logical problems, even the ones that requires creativity. For example, machines can generate music nowadays. They can do artwork. They can generate new faces. You can even generate your business plan online. Just give some words to the algorithm and it can generate it all for you. And we just need to figure out which problems we would like to be solved. And when it comes to the key technologies of intelligent automation, I have made this figure. I would like to start with cognitive services. Of course, this uses some like technical components that I'm going to describe later on. But nowadays, technology allows us to analyze image and video content. We can do speech recognition. Everybody who has phones on their buckets have some like speech recognition algorithms. The problem with Finnish language is that it's not that interesting when it comes to like huge corporates. For example, Google, the algorithms isn't that accurate enough for the company's usage. We can have these virtual assistants, natural language processing. We can use chatbots and stuff like that, which are like business as usual nowadays already. Then we have this orchestrative and integrative technology, and I place robotic process automation in that field because it's just the way to, for example, reach data and put it somewhere else. And then we have this work for engines, event engines, because it's really relevant to know the situation we are working with. For example, if we're thinking about like customer service situation, we have all these possibilities to optimize, and we need to know the exact situation we are with the customer. And then we have these machine learning capabilities. I'm not sure if probabilistic modeling is seen as machine learning, but when you combine something like that to these other components, you can actually create intelligent automation. Because when you know, for example, if you can identify some situation from the picture and you know the situation, and then you can react based on some like models, some algorithms results, you can create intelligent automation. For example, in Telia's customer care, if customers are having some issues with mobile subscriptions, we have this pain point model which analyzes the data that actually our customer care agents have been handwritten on the systems, and it shows to the customer care agent that this customer is having these pain points during this actions. And I divided these technologies to 3 different steps, because most of the companies, when it started with RPA somewhere around 2014 or 2015, most companies were concentrating on just like the efficiency savings. We were trying to save some money, save some time, and just do the same tasks we are already doing with the machines, like more efficient way. But then there were this time with we were more concentrated on business development. We were figuring out how we can solve these same problems more intelligent way. For example, we in Telia, we developed this algorithm that can actually use machine vision and analyze maps when our business customer is ordering some internet access and there's construction work needed, and we can support our network designers with those algorithms. And then there's this third step where the innovation actually enables customers to create new business. I have one example of that in Telia Finland and Telia company actually. But actually, the business unit I'm working, it's based on that innovation. We are developing these new technologies and supporting our business customers with those. This is one concrete example what we did in Telia company. With the artificial intelligence, we needed to understand the problem our legal services were facing. There were repetitive questions about the sourcing templates from our sourcing managers. They actually contacted our team and were asking help. How can they automate those questions, because they have like hands-on, handful of work already, and they were trying to do these playbooks also, but they were too complicated for the sourcing managers to go to some internal web page and search for the guidance for every problem. So we created this AI solution for that. So the normal as-is process when it was manual was that this contract negotiation took somewhere around 1 week to 3 years, because there were need to send the contracts between subcontractor and sourcing manager and legal department. And when we use this technology, it actually went to the 3 hours. So through to like 3 weeks to 1 year to 3 hours, it was quite impressive. And it was, the main idea was to collect all the knowledge and the data of our legal department to this system. So it was actually just the way to have the documents to the system, and the system gave actually advice how these things should be said when it comes to Telia Finland legal paragraphs, and what should be included and what should be excluded. We actually did this like traffic lights, and when it showed, the system showed that some paragraph was on yellow, there was some like alternation needed, and the topic is all right, but the content need to be like negotiated a bit more. Then, when it comes to the red traffic light, there were needs to contact legal department. These were like complicated questions that we still need to have humans to work with. So actually, only the easy ones and just some not so complicated ones were handled by machines. And when there were this like really the cases that actually need legal department advice, we used that knowledge and actually gave it to the system, so it learned from the legal. And then I'm coming back to this picture, because the first of all is to having the standardized process. It's like the most it's like the most important one, to have the process clear processes. As I said, machines are good with like quick processes with clear instructions. And the second most important step is to have good data quality. Most of the companies have been on the way that they are like just pouring all the data to these massive data lakes, but it don't really help are good for the algorithms, because you actually need to understand the data. If human needs to be telling which problems we are solving, we need to understand the data we are solving it with. And then when we have those components in place, we can use robotic process automation for the simple cases if needed, and then we can start to talk about AI and using it. Yeah, and now I'm having a couple of videos. So as I showed you, there are a couple of different point of views when it comes to these technologies, and this is from our Crowd Insights team, and they are using our mobile network data to actually do this, to support city planning, and because we have all this data about people's movement, because everybody is having their mobile phone with them. We are using that data. Of course, we aggregate it and we anonymize it, and we are not using any any data that we can identify a single person, but we are using these data streams to do some for example, city planning and how we can optimize traffic. We have been using those, for example, public transportation. But let's take a look at the video.
How do you plan a city that's already been built? Breathe new life into an old town. Make it a better place to live, work, and play. Listen to the people. They speak with their feet. They can tell you where they travel and what they want to do. Where their last mile starts and where it ends. Where visitors come from and how they spend their time. Because every city has a pulse. And when you can measure this pulse, you can measure the impact of change. All you need is the right tools. Telia City Vitality Insights revealed crowd movement patterns from anonymized network data. How many people? Where? And when? Where do opportunities lie? By comparing historical data with what's happening right now, you can measure the impact of decisions made and make decisions with real data, the most powerful tool of all.
Yes, so that was the first example of how we can use analytics to create actually new business. The asset is that we have all the data, but it enables us to have these data scientist teams that are actually creating this City Vitality Index service, for example, for the cities and events, and it's like you can subscribe it and use it when you are planning some, for example, metro lines. In Helsinki, we did the analysis when the Länsi Metro came, the Western Metro, and it showed that the bus lines wasn't optimized with the metro line, and it helped to make it more efficient. And then I have another example. This isn't that sexy, but it's actually kind of like real life use case we did in Sweden. This was made to the Trygg-Hansa, and it shows how these new technologies can be used in customer service. We are using speech recognition, natural language processing, and it should be kept in mind that this example is in English, so the Finnish capabilities aren't not right at the same place yet, but it will be soon. And for example, when it comes to written Finnish, the algorithms are quite good already. But let's take a look.
Welcome. My name is Tyra, and I am a virtual assistant. Please tell me what I can do for you.
Well, hello. I have just crashed my car into a ditch. My fault. So embarrassing. What do I do now?
Sorry to hear that, but we will handle this. There is a 7-minute queue right now, so I suggest that I help you right now in your mobile device. Is that okay?
Okay.
I see that we have been talking through Messenger earlier and can finish the case there. Is that okay?
Yes.
Then you can hang up now and we can continue on Messenger.
So that was the example, and I'm not sure if I like it that much that Tyra will be on my phone forever, but it enables me to contact the customer service whenever it's relevant for me. So that kind of a use case requires that the data quality is like really good. You need to have all your data in the same place, enable to have this like one channel, omni-channel customer service experience. It requires that you understand the intent, the things that the customer is saying when it comes to speech recognition and natural language processing. You need to understand the situation you are in, and you need to understand the timeline of the case. So the chatbot is able to contact the customer at a relevant time. So this is really complicated, but it's doable now with the technology already. And then I have my last example, and it's actually intelligent automation demo, and this is one of our use case we made with Nokia actually. To use machine vision. We have several different use cases in that area already. Some of them are in production. This one was a proof of concept we did in Kirkkonummi. We did use our 5G network because it enables the data to be transferred in real time, which is really relevant when it comes to machine vision, which requires real-time actions. And I did like this use case because it helps scientists identify green algae from the ocean. So it really has a great impact on the future. So let's take a look.
Our environment is changing. The actions of the past decades are starting to show their adverse effects. One of the most fragile ecosystems on our planet are the oceans and lakes. They face many critical threats triggered by global warming. In the Baltic Sea, the effects of warming are experienced as ever larger blooms of poisonous blue-green algae. This has a clear effect on the ecosystem and human enjoyment and use of the sea. The Finnish Environment Institute monitors the blue-green algae situation in the Finnish sea areas using several different methods. Satellite imagery provides a good overview with local and regional observations collected from cruise ships and airplanes. However, as this data still contains some uncertainty, more precision can be achieved using drones and computer vision. A drone equipped with cameras and sensors can move quickly and easily. Locally captured drone footage is transferred as high-quality video over a 5G network and analyzed in real time. This will help scientists and researchers in building a better understanding of the health of the environment. These environmental video monitoring technologies can be used all around the world to learn more about our natural habitat. For example, it can track the spread of plastic waste or locate oil leaks. By doing this, we can have a more precise understanding and are able to make more informed decisions on how to protect our environment.
So there were a couple of examples how these technologies are used today, and I think this will be quite of like a mainstream into really near-time future. So it's really important to start to think how we are going to like to use those technologies, what's the role of the human, and how we are setting legislations to control it, like what kind of decisions machines can make in the future. And I'm really proud that we are in Finland, we are really strongly involved in AI ethical principles that are formed at the EU. And also Telia company is doing really like groundbreaking work with ethics of AI, because it's really important and we do not know all the questions that will be arised when the technology like this will be mainstream, when the chatbots are serving the humans, and when we can actually run the companies based on the data and decisions that machines are made, because there are examples like that already in the world. But these were a couple of examples. I'm working on my daily work life, and that was basically my presentation. So if you got any questions, I'm more than happy to answer.
Thank you, Kia. Any questions from the audience? You can just raise your hand if anything comes up. We have already got a couple of questions from the live stream audience, actually, so I will ask those, and then I have my own questions, of course. But first one from the live stream chat was that is there actually a truly revenue streams from this kind of cases, or is it just still R&D stuff?
Yeah, we are having this whole like business unit based on to offer that kind of products to the end customers. As I mentioned, for example, that machine vision example was the proof of concept. But it was done together with the end customer, and that's how we got our funding for the cases, so it's business already. And then there are a couple of use cases that are in production already. For example, we did this public use case, or we used machine vision to do the crossover prevention when fueling the like trucks with a Nordic or Nordic oil trade company, and it's already at the production phase, so it's not proof of concept anymore.
Okay, interesting. Then another question from the live stream was that if I would like to build a career in topics related to or cases related that you presented, I would like to work in Telia, for example, in your team. What kind of know-how or knowledge I should have?
We have people with really different backgrounds. For example, one of my colleagues have a like really strong IT background. Then we have researchers, we have mathematicians. We have, for example, I have been studying information system science and business as well. So we have really different backgrounds in our team. So if you understand business, innovation, and are somehow technically, like at least you are tech enthusiast, it's okay, I think.
Additional question related to that: is there a lot of job opportunities available in the field? In Finland, for example?
I'm not sure about Finland, is there already that much, but when some opportunities raises, we are really competing really like hard from the employees. So I think it's gonna be bigger in the near future, and in Finland also there will be more and more positions open, and yeah, I think there's a really like good job market when it comes to like the people who are searching for the jobs.
You already mentioned something of your own background, but I actually Googled your name yesterday when I was looking for your phone number, and I saw a quite interesting story on Telia web pages of your history, how you have ended up in this position. Would you like to share something of that? Have you studied?
Yeah, I did study information system science in the University of Jyväskylä, and then I ended up to the Telia actually by an accident, I think. I started as a technical customer care, as the customer like care agent, answering the calls and solving the technical problems. Then there was this opportunity to go involved to this project where we were piloting robotic process automation, and I went to like develop the processes because I had some like programming background. And after that, we actually figured out that we need to as well find the ways to communicate with the business. It's not enough that we just do some programming ourselves. So I started to build the business analysis model and like the way of working, and actually had whole team to do the business analysis. And after that, I started to work with AI because I was asked to like set up the communication in Telia Finland between different units and silos and combine those together. So that's basically it.
Yeah, interesting. What about the future? Now you showed us quite interesting examples that are actually already happening. I can have Tyra on my phone forever. But if you need to say something about the future, for example, after 10 years, what is the situation? How are we using this kind of technological solutions?
I think we are not talking about AI anymore. It's just technology that we are using. Those are just tools, and it's gonna be like more mainstream. And for me, it's a bit concerning that we are using these like high. Like big corporates, for example, if Google is delivering our like language understanding algorithms, for example, when it comes to speech to text, and it really forms our whole culture. And I think that's something we need to like take into consideration, that we should have it in our own hands in Finland, because it's about our culture and our language, which is evolving during these technologies. So I think it's going to be like mainstream everyday and tools. That's the same that we are using our mobile phones and computers. We are using like AI-powered tools.
Yeah, that sounds quite actually scary too, but let's see. Already those Tyrabots were quite scary for me, but let's see. Maybe we are used to those kind of technologies already within a couple of years. But hey, thank you again, Kia. We will have a short break. We will continue 10:50, and there's coffee served on the lobby, so feel free to enjoy that there.
Thank you.
What? Yeah, it is small. Et helkutissa kysyy. Mä oon 2 tuntia puhunut. So I've been speaking for 2 hours in Finnish, so my brain is still functioning in Finnish. No, I'm so slow, it doesn't happen. So that sounds great. Yeah. It's a fun. Eikö se aukea siitä? Pitää saavata. Joo, joo. Onko se on automaattisesti esitystuvassa?
Okay, I think it's time to continue. Hopefully there was enough coffee and chocolate available. Our next part of the BitFest seminar is dealing with 2 interesting topics. First one is more of a launch and HAMK related issue, and I think we can continue directly, so let's give a big hand for Jukka Raitanen from HAMK.
Yeah, thank you. And if there are some issues with my speaking, I've been speaking Finnish for 2 hours, so I'm having a small brain lag here when turning to English. Hopefully that's okay. Yeah, today is the launch of the HAMK Gaming Academy, and me together with Evelina and Tommi Saksa, one of the creators of BitFest, we've been the creators of also this gaming academy. And well, even though it's a gaming academy, to us, gaming is just not about gaming at all. We are creating a new ecosystem inside HAMK, and it's a learning ecosystem. So, Evelina created a research. It was done on the fall of 2019, and research was conducted inside HAMK, and we had 277, if I recall correctly, answers. And we asked the students of HAMK on how do they perceive the esports and the gaming industry as a whole. And we thought that esports could be something new for the students, and well, the students, they had the similar ideas. So majority of the students, somewhat 81%, were gamers of some sort. So 81% of the students that replied to the questionnaire had played video games at some level, maybe not on professional or semi-professional level, but at least on some level. And 65% of the students are playing almost daily or daily. So a lot of the students that replied are really active in gaming. And what was really interesting, that 75 of the correspondents were interested or possibly interested on joining if we would create something new. A module for esports as a whole and esports in the idea of the esports business. And in addition, almost 1/3 of the students that were not gamers were still interested on joining the esports business module. So we decided, why not? But the esports is all about ecosystems. And we cannot create an ecosystem by ourselves. So we need to have great partners. We have partners in the city of Hämeenlinna, and as you might see, we have also a partner in Bunkeri and the Hampton Games. So we've already created an ecosystem to support the studies we're going to have in the future. And the ecosystem, it revolves around the gaming, and it revolves around the vision that we would have in the future a national and international gaming activity that would be in a high level. And in addition to the research and the esports education, it will require for us to have some physical spaces also. Some game rooms and also some major event like the Hampton Games. So there's a lot of different routes that will lead us to the esports-like education. And when thinking of esports education, we are not the first one to do it. We are not the 1000th university to do it. But there's a lot of esports education going on at the moment. 3 weeks ago, Star League, one of the major operators in the CSGO business, launched a college/university gaming league in the States. So in the States, the esports is already a business in the college level also. And so we decided, hey, let's create something new. Let's create an ecosystem that's built around the professional competitive gaming, but it will have the education and the research aspect as well. And all of the aspects around the esports ecosystem, they can and they in the future will be researched inside HAMK. And this is not just for the business students. This learning platform will have a lot of different types of activities, and it will really be an environment in which the students can join if they so will, and start their own career paths. Me and Evelina and the other teachers that are involved, we do not harness the power to decide on what you're going to do in the future, but you have the power to do it. The learning environment, it has already been started. It has been started by some researchers, it has been started by doing some projects, but in the future, in next fall, in the first module of 2020, the fall semester, we will start the esports module, and we will see on how we can create something new and find our own approach to the esports business as such. And this is the result we want to have. You know, the LAN parties, the events, they are also learning environments where our students can operate in teams, create something new, and have a common goal. This team was formed from the students of HAMK, but in addition, in this event, the background, the IT part was also joined, and we created this event together with the Bunkeri. So our environment has already begun working together, and we're hoping that in the future, most of us will join us. Thank you.
Thanks, Jukka. Couple of words about this event, actually. because you mentioned something that we are now developing and creating is the course or module related to esports as a business, but we have already participated in the Hampton Games event in January, and actually our HAMK gaming team won the competition, which was excellent result. But what would you say, what was the success, or why did they won the competition? They were better.
Yeah, they were better. Easy. Well, they had the better strats, and they were really like, gaming is something that should motivate you if you're playing. It was not a high-level tournament at Tier 4 maybe, but still you have to have the motivation to try to become better as a gamer, and it also requires a lot of like teamwork and team effort. Though we have like good shooters, it was a CSGO tournament, so we had good shooters, but it was still a team effort in a way.
Is there going to be another gaming event and where HAMK is going to form a team?
There should be, yeah. There's an idea of creating a league, but that's in the future, so let's see.
If I want to know more about this HAMK Esports and HAMK Gaming Academy topic, how can I learn more?
Yeah, I would contact you or me. I think that's the only way at the moment, so contact Evelina, please.
We'll open our web pages within this spring, so after that there's going to be a web page where you can find all of the information.
Yeah, I think we can promise that the form of the web page and the module, it will be done by the end of like April. So then it will be opened and it will be like informed to everyone.
Yes, thank you, Jukka. Our final speaker of the seminar will speak about experience design and experience management, quite interesting and a little bit different topic compared to the morning session. And after Violeta's presentation, we will have a short summarize session afterwards, so don't leave directly after Violeta's presentation. But yeah, let's welcome to the stage Violeta Salonen.
Hi. Is this too loud for you? So I can put it down, because I'm really loud. No? Okay, good. Good day to you all, and I have to start by saying that I was sitting here in the morning listening to another two speakers, and then I was thinking, what? Why was I even invited for this? So Evelina, you have some explaining to do on that. But basically I teach in Haaga-Helia all subjects related to experience design and management. I come originally from Montenegro, as in south of Europe, therefore the loudness. And my background is actually in music. I've done a few degrees in music conducting, music performance, and then masters in music conducting, and that somehow weirdly led me to experience design, which is extremely connected. Therefore, I see the multidisciplinarity in this maybe a little bit clearer than the rest of the people. But since I teach in hospitality and tourism-based campus, I'm not going to base all of my examples on that, but I'll take you a little bit on a slightly different journey than what the previous two speakers have been talking about. And like I'm a teacher, and you probably most of your teachers are forcing you to always define things. This is exactly what I'm going to do now. I'm going to force us all to define things of what is experience, and by all the dictionaries and so on, experience an event or occurrence which leaves an impression on someone. Impression, therefore the emotion, which means that experiences are closely connected with emotions. Then we look at the design. It's the art or action of conceiving of and producing a plan of drawing something before it's made. So we do have this kind of longer term goal in mind when it comes to design. But then what experience design is, and this is a freestyle definition created by me. For a few years this evolves after every courses I teach, but it's basically practice of designing both products, services, events, different omnichannel journeys, environments, but the focus is really placed in the quality of the user experience. So we have this very clear customer centricity focus in that. And it's not really driven by a single discipline. So there's many different disciplines that connect you with experience design. I hope this is clear, and we all know kind of where we stand perspective-wise at least. What the experience designers do, so they're the ones that plan, they produce an entire journey of the customer, and when we are talking about the entire journeys, we are talking about pre-experience part, we are talking about during the experience part, and the post-experience part, which is very often the weakest. So we are good at marketing, we are good at also promising things that sometimes we don't deliver. Yeah, we try to wow the customer during the experience, but then people leave and we might have some kind of loyalty points or some weak newsletter and so on, but we don't really have the journey totally cohesive from beginning to the end. And this is a nice little definition, isn't it? Bunch of definitions, really wonderful, but what do we do with this? How do businesses respond to the new trend and the new topic of experience design? What do we know? What do the statistics say? How much do we actually know? I took a liberty to look into some research that was done since 2012 and also compare the results to what has happened in the recent researches in like last year. And 89% of the people say they switched business to a competition due to poor customer experience. So people they're not just happy with the basic customer service, they want to be wowed. They want to have something that is more memorable, something that is going to stay in their mind. So they say, you know what, now I can choose, and actually I have the power of choice, so I choose to switch. Why? Because I don't get good experience. 86 of these people say that they will pay a premium price for the good experience, which means what? We have a market, so we have people that will pay, we just have to know how to deliver these experiences to them. But then you have 93% of the brands who are listing the customer experience as a top 5 initiative. So they say, okay, this is the top 5 things that are important to us, customer experience. And then 28 of them say it's a top priority. So yeah, there seems to be a match between these. People want something, businesses understand what they want, but here's the nightmare part. I've done this research for years to come and compare the results and so on. So from 2012 to today, this is the outcome. The studies are showing that 2.3% of the businesses have improved, even though this is a top 5 initiative for them. 69.2 remain the same, and then 28.5 have gotten worse. How's that possible? So I was thinking for a while, like, what do we do with this info, and how do we actually understand where this thing has all started from? So I'm going to take you quickly on a little journey before I get to the multidisciplinary part and tell you where at least I think they have started from. In the past, according to Marketing Week, 15 years ago, people used on average 2 touch points, so 2, and then only 7% used more than 4. But if we compare this to today's world, people are using almost 6 touch points and 50% are using regularly more than 4. Which means what? There's this discrepancy between the touch points. There is something that it's not really even there and doesn't talk the same language. Let's look at the old touch points. So back in days, you had a physical place or a product that you get in touch with, cool, then you had newspapers, radio, word of mouth, TV, customer service, all these basic things. And then it was somewhat fairly easier to navigate and make these more cohesive. But look at this. This is how it looks today. And this is just one of the examples of how complex it looks today and how many touch points do we have, and how, from a business perspective, we need to make sure that these touch points are cohesive. They talk to each other. There is a red thread when the customer starts engaging with your brand, either be it digitally or physically, that they feel supported on every single step of the way. So that's the problem. Too many cooks in the kitchen. I think that's how you say in Finnish, isn't it? Yeah, okay. But I want to go back and start thinking, or at least show you some beginnings of what is the experience economy. This is extremely sexy term at the moment. Everybody's talking about experience journeys, customer experience, experience that, experience this. But where did this term actually start from, and how did it come to be? There were those 2 guys on the left, Pine and Gilmore, the fathers of the experience economy. These are 3 editions of the book. First one from 99, second one from 2011, and the third one was just released now in December. And what these guys have done is they actually translated the experiences more into the business world. And they use the theater metaphor in the process of doing that. Of course, long before them, there was a lot of researchers that have found the weak signals and understood that, yeah, societies are moving forward. People are not happy anymore with just services. Yeah, we want to be wowed. Yes, we want emotion, blah, blah, blah. But these guys were basically the first two who made it into the business terms. And what they did is that they said that the companies are staging meaningful events. So there is a first metaphor from the theater that you are staging something. This doesn't just happen across multiple channels. And then you are engaging customers in a memorable and in a personal way. So right away, a little bit less business perspective and a little bit more of the other discipline type of perspectives. What they made as an outcome of their research and many publications and many business cases they worked for in US and globally, they made this pretty little framework that it's called Experience Realms. And as you can see here there's two lines, horizontal and vertical. On the horizontal one, you have the details of the level of the guest participation. So literally means, is the guest participating passively, as in the physically passive? Do you sit and just take in the experience, like when you go to movies, like when you go to theaters, or are you active, physically active? And then you have the vertical line, which is basically your connectional environmental relationship, so you can be either absorbed or immersed into the experience. So they classified them and they said, sure, there is this entertainment type of experiences. Then you have the educational experience where you are engaged more, as in the mind engaged, so you learn something, you participate a bit more than just when you're passively sitting down and taking something in. Then there is the escapist experience, and then there is aesthetic, and obviously aesthetics are more something to do with visuals. And then they say in the middle, there is this thing called the sweet spot. And the sweet spot means what? That all of the experiences should at least touch upon some of these dimensions. And as you can imagine, in 1998, when the article came out in Harvard Business Review, it was a total like, wow. Look at this, now we have some classification of the experiences, and it was great. But the model never told you really how to design an experience. It just told you that there is a classification. And this is why we see some businesses trying to create some super interesting experiences, but they don't really know what other elements should be there. Because these guys didn't get that far yet. Then fast forward 7 years, and actually there are two people from Finland that worked then in this in Lapland, which was called the Leo Center of Expertise or Experience Design. I don't recall now. It's called House of Lapland, and they created a bit nicer tool. And this tool was already a tool that told you how to design an experience. I'll show you, but I drink some and then I can explain. So as you can see, two-dimensional model. On this part here, you have the elements of the product and also the factors that contribute to the overall experience. And on this side here, you have what are the levels of the experience. So the customer experience, but also the brand staging experience. I know you can't see this well, but I'll leave you my email, you contact me, I send you article, whatever. So what they are saying is here that each experience should be individual. Even though you might get inspired by something, don't copy it. So individuality is the key. It should be authentic. It should have a story. So the story that would be spread across multiple channels. It should have the multi-sensory perception dimension. Why? Because we are perceiving things through our senses. There should be a high contrast with a daily life. So if you're engaging into something that it's a wow, if it's the same as your daily life, then it's not really an experience. And then there's this interaction part. And interaction part basically stands for either you as a business interacting with your customers, or then how your customers interact together between each other, because sometimes that's also what makes an experience. Then you have all these levels, and these are basically the levels that you will go through the experience. Motivational is kind of marketing. So yeah, I hear about this nice story, nice picture, I'm a little bit interested, maybe I go and book and do it. Then you have physical, intellectual, and emotional level that can very often be sort of combined into the same time. So you will physically experience something, emotionally, you will experience might be at the same time, sometimes not. But then there's this last part, which is very interesting, and which is where I think we are kind of moving, or maybe already are now, which is a mental level. And this means transformation. And what these guys are saying is that every experience should be, in a way, transformative. I mean, not transformative in a sense like I walk in here as Violeta and walk out as Evelina, no, but transformative in a sense that you change some sort of perspective as a result of engaging with this experience. So these guys made this, Tahvanainen and Kyllönen in 2007, and it was like, breakthrough really when it comes to the experiences, and people are like, okay, now we have a tool to design experiences. And what people thought is that we just apply this tool and then that's how it all works. But it's not really like that. There's many other things that you need to know. And knowing these things that are listed here, that's not really longer enough. I'm not saying you shouldn't know these things. I'm just saying that you should build other things on top of the knowledge of these if you're interested in designing experiences across the whole of the customer journey. And that leads me then to these disciplines that I spent about 5 years researching. Okay, what are these disciplines that are closely connected with experience design, but we don't necessarily teach them, or we don't even talk about them so much. And they all have something to do with designing the experiences. And these are just, I mean, the list is really long, but I had 40 minutes, which I'm probably gonna break, but so I had to pick some. So I picked these. And what I'm gonna do now is that I'm gonna go through them and give you a quick overview of how are they connected with experiences, what theories, some just basic theories derive from there, and then what kind of tools you can use that will help you from these disciplines design an experience. Okay? Cool, are we on the same page, yeah? Cool, all right. So first we move into the psychology. It's really important to understand how human brain functions and how people get motivated. What are the things that make them tick? What are the things that make them interested? What are what is the way we process the information? How do we communicate? What kind of values do we have? If we are talking about creating an experiences that are customer-centric, we have to really be customer-centric and understand. How do these people breathe? Where do they go? What do they do in their free time? How much money do they spend? So not just basic demographics, but really moving past the demographics into the psychographics. And out of here I picked one theory which I think it's very interesting and quite important in experience design. It's a psychological theory. It's called peak end. And this is basically how we remember things, how we memorize the events and the experiences that we go through. Basically, we remember the peak and we remember the end. Other things in the middle, how long did it last, how many drops there were, what kind of rests do we have and stuff, we don't really remember that. Our brain is not really capable to remember. Even though you think, oh, I have amazing memory, but you try to recall any experience that you had, you won't be able to recall step by step. So this is really important part for us to know that if human brain works like this and we remember peaks and ends, these are really two important things that we need to think about when we design. Then the number of peaks you have, that's a different story. But make sure you integrate them into design. Then there's this tool which I think probably most of you are familiar with, or I hope at least, it's called the empathy map. It came out of the book Business Model Generation from Alex Osterwalder and about other 300 people. And it was created by David Gray. And what does this tool actually do is that it puts the customer at the center and it helps you empathize with the customer. And when I say a customer, I mean customer segment. So as many segments as you have, this many empathy maps you should do. And that makes you see things from their perspective. What do they think? What do they feel? Either when they hear about your product or when they engage with your products. What do they see in terms of marketing messages as well? What do they hear? What do they say and do after they have used it? Extremely important, especially if we are thinking about the word of mouth, which is in many cases more powerful than the traditional marketing. And then what are their pains? important to identify so you can develop the journeys, and then also what are the gains? What do they get by using your product? So this is a pretty nice little tool, and you use it as many segments you have, that many empathy maps you make. And that can help you ultimately to create the user persona. And like I said earlier, not just talking about demographics, but really looking into the psychographics of people. Where do they live? Yeah, cool. I'm not saying that's not important. It's important, but it's also important to know that what are the frustration and goals? What are their values? What are the motivations of these people? What kind of channels do they use when they are communicating with each other and so on? This is all very important to understand if you're designing customer-centric experiences. Then we move into the next dimension, which is well-being, and you might think like, what does that have to do with experience design? But it does a lot. There was this guy, Martin Seligman, who in late 70s developed this tool that was called PERMA, and this is basically, he was trying to understand what makes humans happy and how do they tick. And he came up after many years of research with a model that it's called PERMA, and I think this model might also be used quite a lot in gaming, or it should at least. The way I perceive it is that you should create positive emotions for your people, you should engage them on a different levels, you should create positive relationships, so you should concentrate on the relationships too. You should create a meaning, because yes, people like to engage with something that has meaning, and it's not just a pointless, especially if we are talking about experiences. And then accomplishment. Sure, we all want to accomplish something. This is then again closely connected with different gaming theories as well as the flow. Then we move into this topic. I can talk about this for hours, but I'm not going to, because I don't have hours, neither than you do. But basically, you all know that throughout centuries, we have connected and felt very close with the stories, and this is how we passed the information from generation to generation. We told stories to each other, so our brain is coded in a way that we remember stories much better than the raw data. So if we know this already, that people resonate better with the stories, why don't we give them stories? Why do we write missions and visions, and why do we put 80% of this and this many percent of that? Create a story, because we can connect with stories a lot more. Like an example that Kia gave earlier with the Tyra, the robot and so on, sure, there was a story about this, but if they presented you the raw information and told you, hey, these are the things you can do, we'll be like, yeah, fine, but we might not have remembered that as much as we would do once we know the stories. Here's one basic tool created in 1850s, used as a lot in the story making. It's called Freytag's pyramid. And what this guy is saying is that there is basically all stories have some pattern. Sometimes you have more peaks, sometimes you have less peaks, sometimes they're more dramatic, sometimes they're less dramatic and so on. But basically they all have an exposition. So they all set the ground of what is this story, who are the characters, what is happening, how is this happening. Then you have some little incident, the rising action, the drama builds up. Look into any movies you watch, most of them are based on this, or on the next tool I will show you. Then there's this climax, slightly falling up action, resolution, wrap up, move on. Most of the stories are created like this, and therefore easier for us also to identify with them. That leads to another tool that I want to present you today. It's called the Hero's Journey, and this is basically the tool they use for making movies. Most of the movies are based on this tool, and this is why I don't watch movies anymore, because I know all the steps, so it becomes annoying. But basically the Jenkins, who created this tool, was looking into the ways. First he laid it over the Freytag's pyramid, the one I showed you before, and then he was looking into the ways of like, what are the certain steps that stories are kind of built upon. And there is a 7-step, 12-step, and 17-step model. This is the simplest one, and I'm not gonna go in details explaining this to you, but I'm gonna leave this with you, so if you're interested, you can read more. But the one thing I'm gonna tell you is that all people, and especially when we're talking about experience design, go from known to the unknown. So when you want to familiarize your customer with your brand, they don't know about your brand. But then once they do familiarize themselves, they pass on the threshold. So you can create and make a customer journey based on the hero's journey. Why? Because your customer is the hero of your own brand's journey. On the way, this customer, yes, needs help, has challenges, so on, but eventually they make the loop and they return from the unknown to the known. So you can lay out many elements of storytelling and dramaturgy into creating the experiences. And here are some elements of how you can do that. Basically using the storytelling in marketing, in communication, during the viral campaigns, creating an emotion, bringing the emotion through the stories to your customers, because it's easier for people to identify with a story than just with the raw data or just with a single product. And then don't forget the red thread. Just like in stories, you need to have a red thread consistency across all channels, across the entire journey, with every single touch point that you have. This topic, I was like, can't believe I'm going to talk to gaming people about the gamification, and I don't know enough about this, but there we go. I'm a brave human, I can do that. Another topic that it's also important into the experience design, it's gamification. And basically, I'm sure you all know this theory of flow. It's called the Psychology of Optimal Experience, created in '75 by Michael, yes, very nice surname. And basically what this guy is saying here is that challenge and skill should be balanced. If the challenge and skill are not balanced, you basically feel either anxiety if something is too challenging, or if something is not challenging enough and you have a high skill, you feel bored. Which means what? You have to keep the flow channel open. And when you are designing experiences and interactions, you have to be able to design to keep the flow channel open. So to have the balance as consistency between these two. And then, of course, if we are talking about using gamification across all channels, you need to have the user engagement. You need to think of the rewards. We all have played games when we were kids. We have forgotten to do this as an adults because we are boxed, we are constrained. But you add a bit of a game into anything, I'm sure people are going to be like, yeah, I want to see what kind of reward do I get. I want to see what makes, how do I compete with someone else and so on. So use these across all of your channels, and you will see that your engagement and the communication with your customers will reach the top level. And then, of course, don't forget to think about the different 3 stages of the player's life cycle. You have people who start using your product, or these that are newbies, they have never done this before. You need to make sure you explain them the rules. You need to make sure you tell them how things work. What is the way of engagement? What kind of story do we have? What can you do with our product? But then once they get there, usually people get bored, and then they're like, okay, that's it. I'm not interested. Design a next level for the regulars. Design for those that are interested into already building a habit. And I'm not talking now about gaming already. I'm talking about different type of experiences, theme parks, hotel experience, event experiences, like whatever. Use these models for them too. And then, of course, don't forget the enthusiasts, the ones that are looking for the VIP and exclusivity treatment. Design for them too, because that way you'll make sure that you have all 3 of these things together with the rest, what I said, of course. That leads me to another discipline, which is a sensory perception. You know that probably you've seen this theory before, sensory input processing. We react to the things in our environment based on the way that our senses have been stimulated. So you walk into the space where music is too loud, you want to go with your friend for a coffee, you can't talk, it's too loud, you don't stay in this place. You go somewhere where it smells bad, you're like, not interested. But you go into the place where you don't even realize that maybe they've taken so much care when it comes to the senses, and then you feel like, sure, I want to stay there. Materials they use, smells or scents that are sometimes manipulated, the way they are used, when and how, visuals that they use, consistency of these throughout every single touch point that you do. These are very important things in experience design too. A few years ago, I created this funny looking framework that I like to free call sensory mapping framework. It's nowhere near done, but I created it out of the need for a product and actually an event that we were creating for Suomenlinna. And basically what this framework does is that on this side has a scale from +5 to -5. +5 meaning that you use this sense pretty well, and -5 meaning that like you're totally depriving a customer of the sense, or maybe you're not using it well. And then here at the bottom, you have basically criteria that you want to assess. And these criteria can be either the steps of the customer journey, or it can be just the whole of the journey. Basically, this is up to you. You are the one who identifies what is the criteria. And then what you do, you go sense by sense. So you see, okay, smell. Maybe I visit the website, obviously no smell on the website, at least not yet. They don't use it, but fine. Then you see why they don't use it and so on. You go to the physical place, how do you identify that particular sense? And then after the identification, based on the criteria you make, you measure the gaps. And you see what are the gaps. Why have we deprived the customer of some senses, or why have we overloaded them with some senses? One thing that I have to admit to you that I struggle a lot with this framework is that there is no standardization of this. So you would say, hey, if you're at a 5, you should have a 5 at all times. No, because then we are really overloading people. Should it be at a 0 at all times? I don't think so. But you need to have a sense of somewhat making sure that those senses have been taken into consideration, have been used across the journeys, but they're not too much or too little. So this is why this is not out in the world yet. And I'm showing it to you as a pretty okay tool if you want to measure how much the senses are used. But in the academia and in the industry, there is no tool that will tell you how to measure the sensory perception of the experiences. If you're interested to make one, let me know. And then that brings me to the last discipline that I picked for today for you. And this is design thinking. And why I wanted to bring design thinking into this is because I think that the design thinking can kind of unite all these things that I told you about. All this storytelling and sensory perception and psychology and well-being and whatnot that I mentioned. And the design thinking in this sense really refers to the cognitive, strategic, and practical processes, that the way that products or experiences are developed. So very often in experience design, we use the design thinking steps in order to create experiences, but we enrich them with all this other stuff that I showed you. And here is how the steps look like. First, you have to understand and empathize. Brings me back to the psychology part, where I said, yeah, the empathy map, you remember? So you empathize with your customers, you understand what it is, what they need. You define it, you think, what do I do with all these information of these micro and macro environments of the way that people communicate, of everything, what do I do with this info? You start thinking, how can you mold this into actually creating a product, service, experience, event, whatever it is that you're creating. You go through the process of ideation, so coming up with a bunch of raw ideas without thinking, are you able to implement them or not, but you just think of the ideation part, and then you move into the filtering of these ideas and the prototyping. And this is very important in experience design. Prototype something tested. Go back into the loop of the iteration design process of thinking, testing, prototyping, and go around in as many loops as long as you feel that the customer is happy with an outcome. Not that you are happy with an outcome of your product, but the customer, because you are designing for customers. Yeah, prototyping, testing, implementing. You see those arrows here? It's because these are all the steps that you can take back and forth in order to help you design. So this is a way of applying methods to problem solving and to the innovation also. And we use this quite a lot, at least when I create with my students different type of experiences. We usually use this or then the service design method, because it has a very clearly defined steps, and then you enrich it with all the other things I showed you. And I want to leave you with this definition. I know, so much text, it's like, oh my God. But I really couldn't take anything out of here. I tried. And this is to tell you that experience design, even though I put all these dimensions and all these different tools and theories where they come from, it's not really a checklist. There is no recipe for this. You develop this over the years as you go. You develop the nose like you develop the nose for business. You sense things. You look at the trends. You talk to people. You see what is kind of going on around. So there is no, if you follow my slides and say, I'm going to do all these things, what she said, this doesn't mean you'll create a good experience. But sure, you'll be able to enrich it. There's many, many things out there especially if you go to books and articles and so on, and everybody's defining what experience design is. There is gaps between this and that and so on, but no one really tells you, hey, there's the recipe. Use this like when you make bread, you know. You can add some seeds, a little bit more salt, a bit olive, a bit rosemary, and then it's different type of bread. The same thing with experiences. But one thing that I can tell you about this is that it's really customer-centric, and it considers all stages of the customer journey. And you try to play on the value, create the value for customer, and also you're trying to engage them, which in turns gives you the memories, give you the wow effects, give you connections, help you build relationships, and so on and so forth. Okay? Thank you. Was I too loud?
No, you weren't. At least in the front row, it was excellent. Any questions in the audience? I actually love this omni-channel style of nowadays. I got now a couple of questions through Facebook Messenger.
Oh, cool.
So I will continue with those questions. Could you give one or two examples of companies, cases, projects, whatever, who has done good experience design from your point of view?
Those that take all these dimensions into consideration, I wouldn't say all of them, but there is many companies out there, if we are talking into the cultural experiences that they create. If we are talking about the theme park, for example, there is one brilliant place in Netherlands that I visited recently, and I felt like they're quite close to this. It's called Efteling, and this is a themed park. And what these guys do is that they really pay attention to the sensory perception. They have a brilliant story, and they still have the gamified elements also for the adults, not just for the kids. Obviously, like I mentioned at the beginning, the last part, the post-experience, is something that this industry really doesn't do well. So, you know, when you say, can you give example of good? If I look at the whole journey, no one's that good that you would say, wow. But if you look parts of the journeys, yes. I would say my best experience was when I attended a conference, or the most unconferenced conference I've ever been to, which is called the College of Extraordinary Experiences. And this is situated in Poland, in Troja Castle, in the middle of nowhere. And I felt that these guys have really taken all these things by the book, that even, like if you remember when I mentioned the transformative level at the end of the experience, even after I left and I was driving from there to the Prague airport, and I was thinking, how do I ever explain to anyone in the world what just happened over the course of 1 week? And maybe 3 hours after, I got an email in my inbox with a short description of, like, if you want to share what happened to you in this week, here it is. You can use this paragraph, or you can use shorter version for social media and so on. So these guys have really taken care of every single step. But a single company that does the whole thing, well, Disney. Yeah.
Any reasoning for that?
Well, they are the fathers of the Imagineering. They are one of the first people who started, you know, Imagineering, it's imagination plus experience. They are the ones who started playing with this level of stories, with a level of engagement, with like, you know, molding quite a lot of these things together. So if you look into the best experience design examples, Disney would come very, very high, if not even the best. Look at the ways they manage queues. I mean, nobody manages queues like these guys.
That's true. That's true. On the other hand, what is the most common mistake done in the experience design process?
There is few. I would say the first one is that not necessarily departments who are responsible for these things don't talk together. So it can be that, I don't know, you see, let's say, a sale online, and then you walk physically into the space and you say, I've seen the sale online, and the people are like, what sale? Or you can have so many different touch points that you try to navigate online. Oh, I got this loyalty card, I can collect my points. You go online, you try to register, no, it's the wrong place. Then you click another place, no, this is the wrong place. No, call the number, no, go physically there. Then you're like, you know what? So I would say that the cohesiveness and the connection between the touch points, it's probably something that it's not well done. And then the last part, this post experience. Like I mentioned, you get some loyalty card newsletter. Hello, Evelina, very nice, you were our customer. End of the journey. And there could be a lot more things that they do in order for customers to come back, actually.
Yeah, good points to keep in mind. Hey, thank you, Violeta.
Thank you.
Okay, then we can move on to our last part of the BitFest, if Sanna comes to show us something. In the meantime, I want to say a couple of words to thank some of the organizers who, all of them are so visible here. I would like to thank Tapani for opening the seminar with me, our marketing assistant Sanna, who's been actively marketing and organizing nearly the whole seminar, our streaming team from there where's the light, and our who are you, Marco? The man who doesn't know but manages quite many things like lights and the voices around the auditorium. But the biggest thanks goes to our speakers, Violeta, Kia and Mika, and my co-host Tommi, who cannot be here today due to health issues, but actually Tommi is the man behind the whole seminar. So let's give a big hand for each of them. And if I can ask you to take your mobile phones or laptops to your hand or table, we need those. We have a small competition. I'm pretty sure that you're familiar with Kahoot, so go to kahoot.it. Voi laittaa sen, ei se niin toki vakavaa on. So the address was kahoot.it. In just a couple of minutes you will see the PIN code from our screen to write to your mobile devices or laptops. Just a short question, a couple of short questions. And you can take the sound off, it's awful. Okay, you wanna hear it. Okay, so now you should see the PIN code. 603010, 60, sorry. Just read it from there. And we have small prizes for number 1, 2, and 3. I'm not sure if there's a limit for players, but let's see. Oh, you cannot see it. Marco. Marco is running there. We will wait a couple of minutes. That's the reason why we have Marco here. 148 players right now, and of course people from the live stream can also participate. Is there any hope, Marko? Okay, it's coming there soon. So if anyone is not familiar with Kahoot, there's going to be a couple of questions. Questions only 20 seconds time to answer, and it will rank your answers based on the correct answers and the time you spend. So you need to be fast and right. Okay, I think everyone is in right now, and we can start playing. If Sanna press start. So the questions and answers will be, or choices will be here, and choose it from your mobile. Okay, quite many correct answers. Congratulations. Which was the right answer? And there's the scoreboard currently. Well done, that was quite easy. Interesting names. Okay, this was pretty challenging. Let's see the final scoreboard. Or the podium. Easy for OG. Congratulations. Derkki. And Holly, okay. If you're here, please come to... here we will give you the prizes. If you are participating through live stream, we will share it afterwards. Congratulations. Sanna will give you the prizes. Now you can shut down the music. Hey, thank you everyone. Hopefully you learned something new, got new ideas, and we will see you again next year.